Welcome to the Young Hearts Run Free podcast. Lucy Gossage, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Thanks for getting me on or inviting me on.
Yeah. Um, Congratulations on your win at the Winter Spine.
Thank
Oh,
you. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
yeah, that's one word you could use. We will speak more about that. But first of all, what we always like to do is to get our guests to describe themselves, give a bit of background. There might even be some of our listeners who've never heard the name Lucy Gossage. Who is Lucy Gossage?
I
Over to
think
you.
there'll be a lot. So I actually just wrote something for Instagram. It's quite interesting. I'm an oncologist. I treat testicular cancers and sarcomas. I'm co-founder of a small charity, Move Against Cancer charity, that supports, inspires and empowers people living with and after cancer to be active. I used to be a professional triathlete, so I've won a fair few Ironmans in my time, and I'm now an ultra plodder, I call myself. And fun fact, I was the vicar at two of my closest friends' weddings this year, so that's a thing that I think I actually would put on a CV. The unofficial vicar, not the proper vicar. I did all the fun bits; they had to do the boring bits, but yeah. Anyway, so that's me. I talk a lot. But I like my own company, watch a lot more trash TV than people would think. And that's me in a nutshell.
Well, we like people that talk a lot. Don't we, Stephen?
Absolutely. I'm just wondering what's your favourite trash TV?
Oh, The Traitors. I love
Oh.
that. Yeah, but really varied. But Traitors is the biggest, the most recent binge. I'd saved it up actually for the spine. I couldn't wait for that Sunday. I was just going to have a day and catch up.
Mm. Yeah, it's certainly been in all the and of course that just finished this week, the latest
Yeah.
season of that. Yeah. So, and for those people who are not yet watching Traitors, it's available on catch up. It's some fantastic binging. So brilliant. But you mentioned something there, and let's do this right now. Say a bit more about Move Against Cancer. Say a bit more about that.
Oh, we're an awesome charity. So yeah, we're very small, but we've as I said, our whole thing is exercise for people living with after cancer, and there is a huge amount of benefit that the very best thing that anyone with a cancer diagnosis can do is be active. But healthcare professionals are really bad about talking about it. So our whole ethos is shouting about that and supporting and inspiring people to be active. So we've got 5K Your Way Move Against Cancer groups. I think we've got 105 or something over the country. And in fact, this is amazing. King Charles rocked up at one yesterday in Sandringham. King Charles rocked up. I thought someone was taking the piss when he said, "Did you know the King went?" So we meet at park runs across the country on the last Saturday of every month, and all the groups are led by volunteer ambassadors who've all been affected by cancers. And we just walk or jog or run as much of the 5K and then have a chat. So it's just about a peer support, being active in a group of environment of people who get what it's like to live with cancer. But I think the thing, and this goes for all sports, they're all people brought together through adversity, but they're all by definition, by having the guts to turn up at a group, they're people who look for silver linings, and that's why the groups are just so empowering. So that's one arm, and then we've got an online one-to-one program for young people who've finished their cancer treatment or got a gap in their cancer treatment, with cancer rehab instructors. So it's about building that confidence in their body, building that confidence in their, you finish your cancer treatment or you've had this cancer treatment and life has just stopped. And then suddenly you're discharged from hospital appointments stop. You've got this body that's very different. You perhaps lost confidence in how you look. And the program's all about helping young people get that confidence back and then just talking about it. So yeah, my biggest role now is just kind of showcasing it and spreading the word and and using platforms like this to shout about what we do. But it is a real cliche, but it's so true. If you had a pill that you could give to everyone with cancer that did all the benefits that exercise did, you would give it to every single person would take it. So I just think it's crazy that we don't do more to support people to be active. But yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
Did the King put his sambas on and do a 5K?
No, I don't think he did the 5K. I think he rocked up for the coffee and the cake, but that's fine. That is the first step to doing the 5K. And a lot of people actually start I'm not, a lot of people start like that. I'm not saying that the King is going to start doing 5K, but that is the way in. It's turning up, it's seeing what it's about, it's having a chat to people, realizing that actually everyone's similar. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how educated you are, you're brought together. And for us, it's brought together by cancer, whether as a patient or the partner of someone who's going through it or as a healthcare professional. So yeah, whether or not he did it, it doesn't really matter. He was there and he you know, he took that first step.
It's quite the seal of approval. Fair play. Fair
It's
play to the
quite
king.
bonkers. Like it is quite bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That
Brilliant.
sounds absolutely
That's it.
magnificent.
So something very, very funny. I was like I ended up in the Times newspaper on Friday about the race, and my brother was joking, and he said, "Oh, the king probably reads the Times. Next thing you know, he'll be rocking up." And then the next day, and obviously it wasn't anything to do with that, but the next day there's a picture of him there at 5K Euro. I was like, "Oh God, who next? Where are we going to go next?"
Well, here you are. Here you are, right here. Brilliant. I love that. I love that. And I know that you raised quite a bit of money, or you have raised quite a bit of money. Do you want to say a bit? We can, if you can send us a link to the fundraising, we can put that in the show notes too.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And yeah, over the last two spine races, I've raised nearly, I think, £60,000, something, maybe even
Wow.
more than that. Like it's just bonkers. I can't believe how generous people are. But what's really nice is a lot of the people who've donated. And the first year, a lot of friends and people that know about the charity donated. This year, I wasn't even going to do a fundraiser. And then just before the race, people said, like, can I, you know, where do I donate? And I thought, well, I'll put one up. I might, you know, might get £1,000, £2,000. But a big chunk of the people donating are not people that I know. They're people who've either benefited from the charity or, you know, living with cancer. So I think the money is one thing. I think it's over 20 grand this year, but it's the awareness that comes with it that's almost more impactful. And it's just, yeah, it's just a joy to be able to turn a silly hobby of mine into platform to, I mean, we've only been talking 2 minutes, so I already twisted it to move. But what a joy to turn a hobby into something that, you know, I think is so much bigger than what I do.
I think it's absolutely magnificent. I had a look at the website there just now, actually, and you can see just even the vibe of the website. Go check it out if you're listening and want to find out more about it. But I think your point around about, you know, if it is a pill and you can prescribe it, and that goes for so much, doesn't it? It's no joke, you know, it's so much, you know, it's like, and it is like health professionals needing to prescribe physical activity, and in this case, you know, for move against cancer, but it's, you know, it's the same for a lot of, you know, ailments and medical conditions and stuff like that. Get moving, and it's the benefits are just, list as long as your arm. And you're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere, in fact, even on that X thing.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. We are.
So we'll put all those notes in the in the show notes for people to go refer to.
Thanks.
Lucy, and yeah, I feel you get involved yourself, John.
Definitely, because I think we can probably say quite confidently that cancer affects everybody in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not directly, but by a loved one, a friend, you know. So everybody has an interest in doing whatever we can. And also, Lucy's charity is all about moving, and we are big fans of that.
Absolutely.
Talking about moving, Lucy, you've described yourself as, and I quote, a bit of an accidental ultra runner. When did that accident happen?
Yeah, it was. So I was a professional triathlete, mostly alongside work. I did have 3 years, nearly 3 years, where I just did triathlon, and I kind of stopped triathlon just before COVID. So I retired from professional and what I would call professional, which is where you're living your life around it, at the end of 2018. But then I had a year where I did a bit and was not training quite as hard, but was still doing some amazing races, actually, like incredibly fun adventures. And then COVID came, and it was almost perfect timing for me because it literally ripped the band-aid off and it stopped me swimming. Because otherwise, I think until then I was still swimming several times a week. And then after COVID, I had to really make a decision. Do I actually really want to keep do I want to keep swimming? And there were bits I really enjoyed, but the sacrifices, getting up at 5 to go and be in the pool at 5:30, etc. So yeah, COVID triathlon stopped. I realized how much I always would need exercise just for mental health, like commuting to and from work. That was a real eye opener, actually, that I would always exercise just to process what's gone on at work and just for me to be happy. And then started doing some adventures. So, on COVID times, you couldn't really go anywhere. So we were looking for adventures on your doorstep. So we did Everest on the watt bike and Everest outside, and started to do I'd never ridden more than kind of 6.5 hours, but started to do some much longer rides, all day rides, multi-day rides. And then, yeah, the ultra running. So I guess I was discovering adventures, like, exercising just for adventures, and that kind of craziness of not training but just doing stuff. And then, yeah, it was when I met my ex, actually, and we started doing some longer stuff. And at the time, I remember one of the first kind of big days we did, I was like, can we do 28 miles? And it felt like that was so crazy, because even though I did Ironman, that's a marathon, like going out for a 28-mile run stroke walk. And they were hard for me in those days because I was still quite a quick runner. So I think I'd go off run and then be like, oh my God, I'm knackered. Whereas, ultra shuffling or prodding or whatever, it is very much run walk, isn't it? And yeah, then that summer, so I think that was 2021, we were trying to get an Airbnb, but do you remember there'd been that other long lockdown and everything was closed, and he just found this walk across Wales, and we ended up doing this walk across Wales. And at the time I was like, how hard can a walk across Wales be? We were going to do, I think it was averaged about 28 miles a day. So some longer days, some shorter days. I think the longest was 37 miles. I was like, a walk, seriously, come on, how hard can it be? Oh my God, it was so hard. But that was what gave me the buzz for, point to point adventures by foot. Because I wondered, because I'd done quite a lot of cycle touring, and I thought, I'm not sure I like it by foot because you can't go as far and you can't divert to cafes and things. And actually, what I love is the simplicity. You just have what you have on your back, and you just, you can go really off piste, really remote. So yeah, that was cool. And then, yeah, just kind of fell in love with it from there. And we did the lap that year as a challenge, which again, I remember like driving up there and thinking, oh, this is crazy, like 47 miles. Like how can we be out to run 47 miles? And now I'd go and do it tomorrow, well, maybe not tomorrow because I'm still recovering, but I wouldn't blink at doing it in a training. Yeah, it'd be a big day, but I wouldn't like. I remember when I did the lap this year. I did the lap this year, and I've actually went on the train, and I was cycling over from the train station. I was like, this is crazy. I'm not scared about this distance at all. And then I realized the only thing is to try and go a bit faster. But anyway, that's where it all started. A random walk across Wales because we couldn't get an Airbnb.
Brilliant. Was your lap this year, was it May or September?
May.
Because we were there in September. We did the counterclockwise one.
Oh.
September. Brilliant.
The hard way.
I think it is the hard way, yeah.
I don't know. I think it would be hard either way, to be honest.
And we're going to talk about the spine. I think that everybody probably that's listening is going, okay, Lucy won the spine race. Let's get to that point.
Yeah.
When did the spine come on your radar?
It might even have been that walk, or I think it might have been that walk across Wales. Or then the next summer we did the Pennine Way over 10 days. I remember, so actually this is quite interesting. The first time I heard about the spine race, I'd been asked on Women's Hour, and it was the year Jasmine had won it. And the reason they'd asked me on Women's Hour was to talk about whether it should be Iron Woman or Iron Man. And it was all because Jasmine had won the spine and this woman had won the transcontinental bike race across America. And people were saying, oh, it should be Iron Woman, not Iron Man, la da da. And I've obviously not really heard about the spine, but did a look at reading. And I found the clip, and I was like, there's this crazy 200-mile fell race, and this woman won the whole thing, and she was breastfeeding along the way. And so that was when I heard about it. But I do remember listening to a podcast with Debbie Martin, whatever her name is, Constantini. Anyway, and that was when she was talking about the spine race. And that was when I knew, even though it still felt ridiculous, I just know how my brain works. And we were doing one of our point-to-point days, and I just remember listening to that and going, and deep inside me, I was like, I'm so going to end up doing this one day. And almost like my heart filled with dread, like I know there's no way back for someone like me with this. But yeah, that's when it kind of came on my radar.
Okay. For clarity, we should point out, good friend of the show, Debbie Martin Kinsani, is that person that, and I wasn't expecting to do this as early as this, but I asked Debbie if she had a question for Lucy Gossage.
Oh, did you? I've never
Yeah.
met her. I've never
Yeah.
met her, but it was her podcast. Yeah.
Ah, there you go. And well, you've got that treat to happen yet. So we used to call Debbie Badwater Debbie. We now call her Western States Debbie because she's doing Western States this year.
It's true.
Yeah, but Debbie's question for Lucy Gossage was, as a relative newbie to ultra marathons, what's on your bucket list?
Do you know what? I don't know. And it's quite a weird position I find myself in because I've had my athletic career and you know, I did triathlon very, very seriously for a long time. I loved it. I thought that was me done for competitive racing. And I haven't entered the ultra running kind of world with a view to becoming competitive and doing it seriously. And yet somehow I find myself at the pointy end of relatively big, okay, domestic, but relatively big races. And I'm really clear. I don't want to get sucked into taking this seriously unless I really want to. And, you know, everyone kind of the expectation is you're good at something. So you'll keep pursuing it and keep doing it just because you're good at it. And I've always said, like, I do a fair bit of public speaking. And I always say, because my whole triathlon career started really because I did a PhD that I didn't really want to do because everyone said you should do it. It's the best place to go to do a PhD. It's, you know, and I always say don't do things just because you can, do them because you really want to. So I really wanted to do the spine last year. The racing I did this year was almost to justify what I loved, like being out on the hills. I did then really, really want to almost need to do the spine this year, but I don't know yet what I want to do next. I do need adventures. I do need crazy challenges, whether that's in a competitive nature like the spine. I won't go back to the spine, but you know, something like that, or whether it's completely different avenue. I don't know. And yeah, I don't want to get sucked into I really don't want to get sucked into taking this seriously just because I've turned out to be quite good at it. Does that make any sense at all?
100%. Let me plant a seed. Let me plant a seed for the Premier's 10K Chile Trail Race in November. If you find yourself up here, a lot of people try to get into that one. It's an elite event, so that's there for you.
The invite is there.
Good to hear, though. You're keeping your options open. There's no, you know, so that's brilliant.
FKTs, does that interest you at all?
There is a little nugget. I don't know about an FKT, but the Cape Wrath Trail is like I've always wanted to do that, and logistically it's quite difficult. So that's like one of the UK things that is there, and you know, whether it will germinate into something, I don't know. I love, like, the spine is like an adventure, and yes, I think it's athletic, but it's mainly about problem solving. And you need to be robust, but you don't need to be fast. And it's about like managing yourself along the way. And I've loved that side of things. Yeah, I definitely I want to find stuff that I stand, you know, I think about it. I'm really excited. And then the night before, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I can't do this. This is, and then, you know, I want something that gives me these real highs, those real lows that you come out the other side and you're like, that was amazing. So I want to find something that scares me, something that really excites me. Maybe it will be some ultra running races. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But yeah, completely open book at the moment.
Did you speak to Tom Rainey at all on the spine? He was another competitor, no? Because Tom did the Cape Wrath FKT.
Oh, I think I've listened to his podcast, maybe. Yeah.
And I know you said you work with testicular cancer. Tom had a testicular fungal issue on
nice
on the Cape Wrath. So there you go. But anyway, that brings
Go
us
back
to
and
this.
listen to that one. All
Yeah.
you testicular fans out there.
That brings us to the spine, though. I'm interested. The big question in my head about the spine. How was Lucy Gossage feeling on the start line?
Oh, I was just buzzing. So I don't. Do you know the backstory to like why I entered?
Read the post. Yeah, if you want to speak about it, speak about it. It's up to you.
So I mean, it's a long story short. Like last year, I did it with my ex. We didn't race together, but we did everything. The whole 3 years we were together was like building up to, and we did the spine, and we started it, and we finished, and then yeah. Long story short, during the race. I mean, it is like a podcast, but my friend Nikki had been sharing like videos of how we were doing, etc., all over my socials, and by all accounts, really drawing people in, like thousands of people following us. Got a message from someone who'd been dating him, and Nikki didn't believe it, but then it all unraveled. It turned out he had been dating someone else, but actually that a big chunk of what he told me about his past was made up. So that was kind of all came out a few days after the spine race, and I can't even really describe it. You're on this high, you've done something, you worked together for 3 years, you're still sleep deprived, you're still in that, like, it was 5 days after the race, you're still not really quite yourself, trying to process what you've been through, and then that happens, your whole world falls apart. And yeah, I guess for me it was more than just a breakup. There was a lot going on, but I decided, I think maybe autumn time, end of summer, early autumn, that I just felt like going back to the spine would help give me some closure and draw a line under it all. And yeah, it has been hard actually, like going back and doing the whole Pennine Way again, because so much of our relation, this one day I will talk about it properly, but it's such a big thing to find out the person you loved was not the person you thought you were. And I thought I needed to do the spine race to get that closure, but it turned out I didn't. I needed to get to the start line, and I realized the night before, I was like, do you know what? I'm myself again. I have drawn that line. I've got that closure. I'm doing this, and on that start line, I was just buzzing. I was like, I'm just doing this. This is just for me. Like this is I feel like I'm back, and that's such a weird thing to say, but I've lived under this cloud for the last year. And there's been other stuff, like work's been super stressful because a guy that I work with has left. He's had a baby, so I've been doing two people's job for the last 4 months as well. But I just felt like I am me, and the normal me is bubbly and bouncy and full of life and does stuff with pure joy. And that person had been gone, she'd been buried for a year, and I'd been almost going through the motions. And yet there I was the night before. I just was like, do you know what? This is amazing. And on that start line, I was like, I've just got everything I wanted. It doesn't matter what happens in the race. I literally, I was like, I don't need to get to that finish line to get closure. I've got it already. And so everything in the race was just a pure bonus. And I'm sure that's why I had the race that I did, because it's just this joy that had been suppressed for a year coming out again.
Welcome back, Lucy Gossage.
Yeah, so it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. And I think it's really interesting, like the power of psychology and mindset, and yeah, how emotions can take you so far. Because actually, I'd actually had really bad sciatica for the 8 weeks running into the race, and physically, I don't think I was necessarily in a position that would justify that performance. Yet that joy, that energy, that, all those suppressed emotions, like just that was what got me through to the finish line. And, I think people that saw my videos along the way or met me along the way would probably say she did look like she was having a whale of a time. And I really, I mean, there were tough parts, but generally I was having the best time, and it was just such a joy.
Was that your longest run? I'm going to assume it was your longest run ever. Yeah, 268 miles is quite hard to top. We'll see. Now, thanks for sharing that with us. That, I know that's personal stuff you've just shared, but I think it adds to the story, and it adds to how magnificent you've done getting to that start line, because you said it was autumn time that you committed to the race. Would that be about correct?
Say that again, sorry. It was,
Sorry, was it around about autumn time that you committed to?
yeah, I think I can't remember if it's I committed in my head before I emailed the race, so I can't
Uh-huh.
exactly remember when it was, but yeah,
And
I think it was the autumn, yeah.
in terms then taking back that sort of training block where a lot of maybe that healing and processing was taking place during, by the sounds of it. What do you have a coach? Were you following a plan?
No, I didn't
I
have a
can tell
coach.
by your face.
I never had a coach as a triathlete. I had lots of people
Okay.
that I talked to and got
Yeah.
advice from. But I think honestly, I'm yeah, any coach, if they'd see me hopping out of work because my sciatica was so bad, would have just said, Lucy, just stop running. But I think those, so we did this amazing, one of the big joys of this year has been meeting other women who
Uh-huh.
love doing what I do, like Mel and Robin and all the, and we did this amazing weekend, this recce weekend, and there were 12 of us, I think, and it was. I felt like I'd found my tribe of people who liked the same stuff as me. And it wasn't crazy to go and want to do 50, 60K. It was actually quite normal. And, it wasn't crazy to go and be out in the bogs and the rain and stuff. And that was the biggest high. But that was actually just when the sciatica was starting. And I've had it before and I know it just kind of peaks and peaks and peaks and then will fade off. Um, but after that weekend, then when it was getting really bad, and I was taking drugs and things, and that was probably the darkest I'd been to, maybe because work was crazy. This guy's left. I'm doing two people's jobs. It's tough work. I love it. I absolutely love it, but a lot of work with young people with cancer. You can't just do a half-hearted job. You're either all in or you're not in. Um, and I guess I started kind of writing my blog and processing what had happened, which I'd kind of put off as well. And the sciatica was there, and living with pain that's unpredictable, that running wasn't a pleasure. That I was probably at a really low point in November, December, and I was worried actually. I was worried about whether my mental health in terms of was this all too much? Was work too much? Like, would I be able to cope? But I think going through that almost, yeah, I don't think any coach would have said carry on running. But actually, for me, carrying on running was and that kind of mental release, like those days in the hills. I didn't necessarily feel like doing them, but they did give me that break, that mental break. And I at that point was very much I have to do the spine to get this closure. But I always think going through that really low patch translated into that high that I had on the race, and I almost needed to go through that at some point, and I just put it off, and it just came when work was too much. The sciatica, I'm sure, was related to everything else going on. But yeah, I guess my point. No, I don't have a coach. I'm not sure any coach would have said continue running through that. But I knew I wasn't doing any harm. It was just pain. I just,
Familiar pain by the sounds of it. Like,
Can I ask about sciatica? Stephen, you've mentioned sciatica before.
yeah, I have. Yep.
How does it, for people listening in, how does it present to you, Lucy, sciatica?
so I guess it's a description for symptoms. I don't actually know why. I've never had an MRI, and I tend to get it every 18 months I've only had it once really badly before. And this was just as bad. But it's pain that kind of moves around your legs, and for me I literally couldn't put at the start. It was worse at the start of a run. So kind of shooting pain, you can't localize it, maybe moves from place to place. And you often get pain like when you try and straighten your leg. It's quite unpredictable. So for me, when it was at its worst, I did a recce weekend. So in fact, it was the weekend after the weekend with the girls, and I'd left my car at Dufton. And so I'd got the train to Horton. I was going to do Horton to Dufton, and it was so bad. And the first day was really long, and it was like 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and then it eased off, and then it flared up at the end. And then the next day in the Airbnb, I couldn't put any weight on my left leg. I was convinced I had a stress fracture in my tibia. Literally couldn't put any weight. So I was like, I've got 20 miles to do. And I was shuffling along that flat bit to lying in bed, literally hopping on my poles. But then at the end, like 10 miles in, it kind of almost disappeared. And then the last bit was fine again. So, but yeah, I think it really gives me an insight of what it's like to live with chronic pain, because it really just changes everything.
And you reckon, from what I heard, that your busyness of your work, and if I can use the word stress of work, that adds to that sciatic
So
thing. Oh,
I think so. So stress and sciatica are linked, and I do wonder whether actually it was the stress that kind of amplified it so much. I think living with high cortisol is not very, it's just not healthy, is it? And I think I didn't have any control of what was happening at work. Like there was no one else there to do it. We couldn't get someone a replacement. We couldn't find a replacement. So it wasn't like I had a choice and had any way out of it. But anyway, we've now got some hands in to help, so it's all going to be better now. And yeah, but I think yeah. Anyway, I guess I don't know what my point is, but I think the big learning is for me maybe you can focus on what you can do, and what I could do is a lot of slow moving with a pack, a lot of moving with the poles. It didn't matter that I was running really slowly, because actually you don't need to run quick in the spine. So there's a lot of focusing on actually what are the positive things that I can do.
Like flipping it around as actually this is ideal, because this is the pace that I need to be moving out at. And I supposed to say something like, but because you're moving slowly, your stride pattern's different from normal, and that takes a lot of getting used to in itself. Running slow is hard. And it's a case of sucking it up. Like, and part of that sucking it up is sucking up the pain of the sciatica. Would that be fair to say? Well, here I am.
Yeah, I think I did quite a lot of psychology. So I actually one of the best experience, or with hindsight, one of the best experience of my triathlon career was breaking my collarbone 8 weeks before the world champs. And at the time it was going to be my last. I thought the world champs would be my last race, because I had to go back to work 2 weeks after. Um, and there I was with a broken collarbone 8 weeks out, thinking this is the end of my career. I'm just going to fizzle out. But I'd done a fair chunk of sports psychology, and actually turned that into rather than a threat, turned it into a challenge. And I managed to get on the start line. I did loads of alternative training, and it wouldn't, by the book, it wasn't what a professional triathlete should do, but I got to that start line. There was zero pressure. I was like almost like the spine race. I've got nothing to lose. It really doesn't matter what happens. I'm just happy to be here. And I ended up having, a great race that was way beyond what physically I should have been able to do. Um, and actually, because of that, that's why I ended up carrying on racing. Did another, I think, 2 or 3 years, kind of racing professionally alongside work. But the learning from that, I think, really translates into the learning with the sciatica. That I was like, it doesn't matter what on the book training is like. And I turned off Strava, so I wasn't seeing what anyone else was doing. And yeah, it doesn't matter what training on the book is like. I can do this. I can keep doing my strength. I couldn't do all of that because sometimes the squats and some of those were a bit too sore. But I was like, there's a lot that I can do. I can do big miles with my pack, and I ended up having a pack that was heavier than the spine. Really not intentionally, but just because I thought that my spine pack would be a bit heavier. And I actually bought this steam tent, like because there's lots of evidence for heat. So I bought this steam tent for 70 quid off Amazon. And it was really nice for the pain. But I think probably, I was like, again, that was like, well, maybe this is a little benefit if I can't do harder runs that I can do. And I was like, right, I'll do a hard watt bike once a week, because I can't do the faster running. Not that I ever do fast running, but the normal paced running. So it was almost like I didn't really think about it. I just have learned to find the positives. And maybe you don't need, I guess the merit in sharing this is I did this race that blew me away. I was like, I look back and think, how did I do that? And actually, the training isn't what any professional, like, I don't think Damien Hall or Kim Collinson or any, those coaches would have looked at my training and were like, oh, that's a clever way to train. But it worked. And there are different ways to make a jigsaw complete, I guess.
I wonder if there's an analytics, Stephen, that we can access about how many people are now Googling steam tents on Amazon for 70 quid. But
I actually might get a sauna, because it's really good for people like me to just I'd get home from work, so I'd shuffle home from work and I'd just sit there for half an hour and I'd listen to something or speak to someone or do my socials or whatever. And you're trapped. You're literally trapped. And I think that being physically trapped for half an hour is
Yeah.
take away the heat. I think that physically being trapped and having to sit down is really good.
Most guys just go to the toilet.
Now, talking about
the escape room.
talking about moving faster, I want to just flick back a year. 2024, you finished third in the spine, Lucy, in 106 hours. How the hell do you shave 19 hours off of that in 2025? That was some recce, getting your foot on the route and moving along. When I think, is it fair to say, this year we had that big dump of snow just the week before, which made it a bit more challenging. So, if you can summarise what went right.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. So so interesting, my splits at the first three checkpoints were first two, yeah, three checkpoints were pretty much identical. But that was when I thought, you know what, I think you're actually having a really good race because it's so much harder conditions than last year. So I took quite a lot of confidence from that. So I think the first with mindset, like I talked about it, I was just racing with, if I can say, unadulterated joy or energy or just like release that all that shit was behind me. And I think it stayed behind me. It wasn't just a temporary blip. I was like, I've processed it. I've done. So I think that you cannot take away like the power of mindset and being in a good headspace. And then I had done quite a lot of thinking, and maybe again, this is a blessing with sciatica. I was like, well, okay, so I can't run as much. What can I do that's actually more important than the running? So things like I'd really gone over the GPXs because the GPXs the race gives you are rubbish. Like they're just, I looked back at where I was lost last year. I'm not surprised I'm lost. The GPX is just going straight diagonally across the pub car park. And I remember like 15 minutes trying to find this footpath in a car park. I was like, it wasn't me, it was a bloody GPX. So now I was like, that is one thing I can shave a lot of time off. And I went over my Strava and I saw how many times I'd been spending 10 minutes moving nowhere trying to find a footpath. So that was a big win. I was like, I'm sure there's hours there if I just don't, if I sort the nav out. The other thing that I thought was in my control was eating because I think I didn't eat last year. I just forgot. It was really cold, everything was frozen, and I'd never done something like this before. And I didn't, again, looking at the GPXs or the Stravas, I was really struck by how actually I was really confused way before I realized I was confused. So I'd look and I'd see myself making mistakes. I'd remember the decisions I made. I thought, you were confused way before you knew you had any insight in that. So I was like so determined I was going to be on it with eating, which I was. It was horrible. It was really hard. Like it's so hard to eat enough. But I did until maybe the last 4 or 5 hours. I really I don't think I could have done I don't think I could have nailed that anymore. And then the other thing was sleep. So sleep was like my biggest downfall last year. And I found sleeping in the checkpoints really hard. So I spent a lot of time trying to sleep, but not actually sleeping. So I didn't necessarily have a strategy this year, but I had worked out where places where there were out of checkpoints. And my strategy was not to use the checkpoints unless I really felt that I could, was in a position to sleep there. So I didn't try to sleep at halls. And actually, I was with this guy, Tim, legend Tim. Anyone who followed my socials would know about Tim. So we spent about 30, something like that, hours together from Hebden pretty much to Langdon back. I think I dropped him on that flat bit. But yeah, we both had an hour in Keld, it was quite early on night two, so maybe 8, 9 o'clock. So we went off the route. There's a village hall with a heater. And that was a decision that won me the race because that early sleep just set everything up for the rest of it. So I think it helped me recover from that first 120 miles. The speed I got back after that hour was just incredible. So yeah, I guess sleep was like the other thing that I was going to do differently. I didn't necessarily know what it was, but I was determined I wasn't just going to go to checkpoints just because they were there.
Mm.
And then the other thing that limited me last year was my chest. So I'm not traditionally asthmatic, but I got really bad, really, really bad cold-induced asthma. So I'd got an inhaler, and I was hoping that that would help things this year. You know, a lot of people get this cough, um, and it didn't, like, it maybe prolonged it a bit, but that was actually my limiter at the end. But I felt like that was out of my control. I couldn't really, I'd done what I could do with that. But the other bits that were in my control that weren't about pace. So none of what I've said was about being fit. It was about like
Mm.
navigating well, fueling yourself well, sorting out a different sleep strategy. And then they all come together. And I mean, 19 hours, I don't know where that came from, but yeah.
But then anybody that's preparing to do the spine, and a lot of our listeners are, they'll be listening in and thinking about the spine or dreaming about the spine. Stephen says, no, I'm in, I think, at some point. Though they're massive golden nuggets that you've just given there. And this learning that you've taken from 2024, do you know how much you slept, Lucy, over the course of the whole spine this year? Do you have that information?
Yeah, I did. So I had so remember I effectively had like a day less to get. So the sleep, I think each day that you do exponentially you need more sleep. But Damien at the end of the race, he was like, "Oh, you were quite generous." So I think I had 3 hours, 40 minutes of lying down, resting, sleeping, or trying to sleep. And then I had a couple of trail naps. So I had one with about 10 minutes in a little train stop, and then another very short one on Hadrian's Wall. Um, but I do think for me, the key was that hour and 10 minutes early in
Mm.
night two. Because I honestly, I made like, I woke up. So Tim, this lovely guy who was with me, um, it was his decision to sleep there, and we'd come over Schonefeld, and that was when. So this is what 108 to 120 miles, say something like that. And Schonefeld was one of the hardest parts of the race because the snow. It was getting dark, and then it was dark, and the snow, this thick snow, was melting. So you'd stand on it, and then you just end up to your chest in some like boggy, slushy, God knows what. So you couldn't see any path. Like it was just crazy. And when we got off there, I think he was starting to hang on a little bit at that point. And he's like, I'm definitely going to go to Keld. And then there's this tricky bit that's quite slow and tricky. And that's when we were going slow and then I started falling over a little bit. And I was like, okay, just just be brave. Like what you did last year didn't work. Just be brave, bite the bullet, have the sleep. And so I went to Keld with Tim, and he was planning on having 3 hours. But then when I got up, he was like, "Oh, do you mind if I come with you?" And we were such a good team, like it was great. But yeah, I do think that hour and 10 minutes, like after that, I woke up and poor Tim was like, God, you're on a mission. But I was so determined. I had to prove to myself that that sleep was a good strategy. But I think if you're going, maybe because I don't know, in the spine, you're probably going 4 to 6.5K an hour. And when you're going, at the very start, maybe I was going 7. But after the first 50 miles, 4 to 6K an hour, if you can suddenly go from 4 to 4.5K to 5.5 to 6K, you make up that's a mile an
Mm.
hour difference. You make up that hour's gap in 3 hours. And you just feel so like you're making such better decisions. You're probably eating, which then pays forward. And so I'm convinced that sleep was ultimately what won me the race. So thanks, Tim.
Just to clarify, is that Tim Broadhurst? Just to give him
Yeah,
to give him a shout out. Well done, Tim, who also finished a wee bit after yourself. 103 hours Tim finished in. So well done
but
to
we
Tim.
spent 30, I think 34 hours together in blissful, silent solitude, suffering, smiling. He was great.
There's a question. Do you like being alone or would you rather have company?
It depends who it is.
Very good answer.
Really depends who it is. Tim was great. We just worked like and I think he would agree that I was probably slightly stronger, but the first 50 miles we were together, like having him there, like whenever I was having a low patch, he'd push the pace, and just having him there to be like it's almost you're accountable. So when you can run, you know, you do run because there's someone else there. And he was probably like, I think we were also like, we were just going through the field and I keep seeing these headlights. And when I see a headlight, I'm like a little I'm like, oh, and Tim was probably like, oh, God, come on. She's going to put in another. But yeah, no, we talked. I mean, we obviously talked a bit, but we didn't talk massively. But it was just, yeah, it's just nice. And I think he took company from, seeing that it wasn't, I don't know, because I was quite bouncy and happy but then he'd be like, oh, this is quite hard. I was like, yeah, I'm 7 out of 10. And we'd be like, we'll both settle for being 7 out of 10. That's all right. But yeah, I do enjoy time on my own. But yeah, it depends who it is.
Okay, thank you.
Tim was good though.
Yeah. Now you mentioned also as well as how crucial a role your sleep management played by the sounds of it. Nutrition, one of John and I's most favourite of topics. Are you pretty set on what you would be taking on a long endurance 268 mile, say, run? Or how does that work for Lucy?
No, I mean, it's so hard, isn't it? And I was telling my nieces, I was like, can you imagine? They're 7 and 5. I was like, can you imagine eating chocolate every hour for 3.5 days? And their eyes were like, wow, it sounds amazing. But actually, it's so hard. And um, I'm a really good eater, like, and I can, I can go out and have lunch and still, go in the middle of a trail day and still keep shuffling. And but yeah, it's just the amount that you're trying to, I'd love to know how much I ate and whether I actually did eat as much as I think I did. I'm sure those first 50 miles I was like, I was eating so well. And again, I think that because that's the bit where you're actually properly running. And I think fueling that bit well, like I just wasn't depleted at all by the time I got to Hebden. And I think last year I didn't do that. And if you set off on a negative, it just goes on and on and on. So yeah, I was eating anything and everything. I made this amazing Biscoff tiffin, which was, it's like amazing, but I never want to see it ever again in my life.
Second.
But I had a mixture, like I had baby bear, I had some nuts, I had various like bars and things, a few gels. Sweets were actually really good. I wish I'd bought more sweets, which I don't normally eat, but I think they just went down quite well.
Kind of sweets.
I can't remember what I had. They gave me a bag in Bellingham though, bag of Haribo, which were good.
And was these, Mel described it as a kangaroo pouch. Is that what do you have that in there as well? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was because last year I used the same bag as last year, but I didn't last year I didn't have any quick access pockets, and I tried various bags and I thought actually that one works. It's really comfortable. And I like having a bit of space so you're not like trying to play Jenga every time you get your kit in it. It's a bit heavier, but again, comfort for me trumps 100 grams or whatever. But yeah, I wanted something on the front, so I sewed some straps on my bag to be able to clip it into, and it worked so well because then all the like temperature regulation stuff, rather than taking jackets on and off and stuff, you can just put your buffs on, your gloves on, your hats on, your balaclava on if it's nighttime or whatever. So you can have all of that there and stuff like my phone because I really wanted to try and capture it this year, which I'm glad I did because I've got those memories now. And you can put music on and off and just paracetamol. It just anything that you might need is just there.
Yeah. You mentioned chocolate. Any specific kind of chocolate? I need the detail, Lucy.
No, I don't. I was mainly the tiffin actually that I had.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a Cadbury's, but it was made with proper Cadbury's dairy milk tiffin. I had some like Snickers, Marks and Spencer's Snickers version. That was disappointing. I'd been looking forward to that. It wasn't as good. So I thought it was going to be amazing, but it wasn't as good.
JC tip: go to Aldi. Their Snickers are fantastic. Anyway, before we'll come back to food. Maybe that's contentious. It could be. We'll come back to food, but you mentioned your phone, and I want to talk about what I describe as when Instagram becomes reality. We're not about Instagram versus reality, and everything looks nice and rosy. You posted a specific video that looked absolutely and sounded absolutely hellish, but it's been it was the reality of the situation at the time, where you were in some distress, actually, and you were sobbing, you were tired. I've spoken to a number of people who found, we've heard that saying that vulnerability is a strength, and that's what people are taking from that. So thank you so much for posting that. 2 questions on it. What was behind the recording of it? What was in your head when you were recording it? And was it a difficult decision to post it?
So I went into this. So my friend Nikki, like who last year got the whole message and like the whole aftermath of that, she was sharing videos. She was like she's a pro triathlete. She's utterly bonkers, but she's an amazing storyteller. And like so many people at work got bought into my race last year, and I really wanted to share it. Like I was doing it for me, and it wasn't, it wasn't just about how quick I went. And I wanted to capture like just what it was like. And I really tried to get like I got some videos at some of the half aid points and some of the tuck shops and just bits and bobs along the way to just kind of show so you're more than a dot. Um and then that episode, so that was night 3. And I was maybe about 3 miles from Hornistead Farm, and it was probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And it had just been such a long night. And I just started crying. And I guess because I'd been videoing stuff, so I didn't share it with anyone, but I just thought, I don't know what within me made me get my phone out, but I just did. And I just started, I just continued. Like I was already crying when I got my phone out. But you know what? I'm so glad I did that because the brain blocks out bits like that. And my memory is, and even more if you've got videos of the good bits, you even more, you block out the bad bits. So my brain takes you back to like climbing Kinder Scout and, all the cool bits. And I look back at that and I can't remember being in that hole, but that was real. Like and I just look back at that and I'm like, wow, that was tough. That's what happens to every single person doing these races. And I'm just so glad I've got it. And it makes me actually feel really proud because it shows that I did have those really tough parts, yet I managed to get out of it. But I have to say, I've blocked that out, and that video is almost the memory of it. And it was hard watching back. I was like, oh God. But yeah.
I'm not going to say I loved watching it, because I thought that is the reality of people in that situation. And I love the fact that you're calling your friend Nicky bonkers when you've just done 268 miles. Robbie Britton, we've spoke with Robbie Britton quite a few times, and Robbie's a big fan of videoing the bits where it's really hard. Everybody can see the finish line stuff and it looks great when it's all over. But that bit at some point in that journey where it's really, really tough, and we very rarely see them. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's brilliant.
I guess it's hard because you can almost plan to do a video where it's tough, but that's different. Like this just I literally I don't know what made me get my phone out, but yeah, I'm so glad I did because I would not remember that, and I think I'll look back. And maybe I'll use these in talks sometimes, going forwards as I don't know, but yeah, it reminds me of something that my brain has blocked out, which yeah.
I think it's refreshing to see that, because like John says, you do often just see or read or watch the good bits, and these moments that actually make the good bits even better are often missing portions of the story. So yeah, don't stop doing that. I'll maybe start doing that as well when I'm out for my 10K at lunchtime. Sometimes it is. It was today actually.
Can I ask about something that you might remember? I hope you do. And I want you to speak a wee bit about John Kelly. Can you do that, Lucy?
Oh yeah, good old John. Yeah, I never met John before, but obviously he's a legend of the sport, and yeah, I didn't really know how well I was doing, and it was coming into Burness, or like that bit from Burness, and someone was like, "You're going to catch John Kelly," and I was like, "What?" And then I saw a photographer, Aaron, who was running with, he was like doing some video stuff. I was like, "Who's won the men's race?" And he said, "What?" It's like, "Who's won the men's race?" He's like, "What do you mean? It's still going?" It's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, Kim's like 3 hours up the road." I was like, "What? What the hell?" Like, anyway, so John and I then yo-yoed for a bit, and my chest by that point was really limiting me. So going up the tube, it's like really limiting me. And yeah, long story short, we had a bit of a chat in Burness. He got in. I didn't know him at all, but he just looked so grumpy and just not really engaging with volunteers. And then they were like, and they were looking after us, and they were really lovely. And then they said, "Do you want anything to drink?" And he's like, "Just water." And then he saw these cans of Iron Brew, and he was like, "Can I have a can of Iron Brew or a bottle?" And I just like, "Oh, John, that's hilarious. You just look like a kid asking for an extra chocolate bar." And he started laughing, and that was, I think, how the bond was made. So yeah, so then we yo-yoed for a bit, and he had a little nap in hut one, and then when he caught me up, he's like, "Do you want company?" And yeah, we just hooked up, and yeah, he could have gone quicker. I think he wanted the company. I was struggling with my chest by that point. But yeah, it just worked, and yeah, he was a proper gentleman at the end. Like he definitely could have dropped me on that downhill if he wanted to, or on that last uphill. But I think he was like, "No, I'll just do it with company." And, it's nice to be a part of someone who's having a good day when I'm not having a good day. And yeah, and then he gave me the finish line to myself. Again, we talked about it, like coming down the hill. He said, "Oh, what do we want to do at the finish?" I was like, "Well, just come over with me." He's like, "No, no, no, I'll stand to the side." I was like, "No, don't be ridiculous. Just come over with me." But then he left it to me, which it was actually really nice to get the photos of me on my own. But he didn't need to do that, and he so could have dropped me. And then he came around and had lunch with my family and a random group of eclectic supporters the next day. So yeah, me and John are buddies now.
Ah,
Brilliant. And you both
a
sat in the
gentleman.
plant pot
Well,
together.
yeah, because
John
obviously
Kelly's
it's his
plant
plant
pot.
pot, but I got there first, even though he let me get there first. But I was like, sorry.
Well, fair play to John Kelly. He's a
Dude,
good guy.
I love the Iron Brew story. We had John as a guest on the podcast, Lucy, and he was at home, which was in Tennessee.
Tennessee, yeah.
Yeah, but he sat there with a can of Iron Brew.
Oh, he's
And a
Yeah,
tonic tea cake
and a
as
ton of
well.
tea cake. So, he'd been, I don't know where he got them from, but and yeah, he was so fun to speak to. So to get to spend a bit of the sharp end of the race with him was, look back fondly on that a bit.
Yeah, and do you know what? When I did go past him the first time, just coming into Burness, my thoughts were, so he said something like, "You're having a great race," and my thoughts were just like, "Kudos to you for sticking," because you got no reason to finish. And
Hmm.
when I was a triathlete, I don't have a problem with people DNFing, but I do have people DNFing just because they don't want to finish fourth or whatever. I think that 'cause it used to really annoy me that when I was up and coming that people would just pull out because they were having there was no reason, and they were just not in the position they wanted to be. And I always felt like if you've got so far in the race, you owe it to be on the finish line. And John had no reason to keep finishing that race. He could have easily pulled out.
Hmm.
But I just thought massive kudos to him for coming through it. And then yeah, as I say, he's an absolute gentleman. That's, by the way, don't have any problem with any one DNFing, and there's lots of reasons to DNF. But DNFing 20 miles from the finish, there's no need by that point. I
Yeah.
think you can keep going.
And just last thing on John, his marathon PB something like 220 something, do you
Is
know?
it?
And it's the range being able to pull out a 220 something marathon and yet finish Barclay. It's
Well,
just
we were both triathletes, so we had a bit of triathlon chat.
dude, I
A bit
never
of I
shared
was
that.
getting some gossip on all of his running stuff and things. And then
Uh-huh.
after a while, it's like, do you know anything about me, by the way? It feels like I know everything about you. And he's like, yeah, I know who you are. So
He would
he
do
did
too.
know that I was a triathlete.
He would know, all right. He would know the
He'd know.
detail.
Yeah.
Can I ask, and this is a question that we should be asking, and it's about your feet and your shoes. What shoes were you wearing on the spine?
I used Hoka Mafatis. So I used the Speed Goats last year and the Mafatis this year, just so they've got a bit more grip. Again, probably not traditional, but they just work for me. Comfort, they worked. And then I had the Ininji toe socks, those merino liners, and the deck shells. I think they might have been a Debbie tip, but again, they were awesome. Because when I got into this, I was just listening to probably like people listen to this. I was listening to all these podcasts. I was like, what do people do? Because it was also new. Like, what do people do with their feet? What do we? And I was just sucking up all this knowledge. But yeah, that was a really good combo. So it worked really well.
That's definitely a Debbie with the mohair and then the deck shells. That's definitely a Debbie tip.
Yeah.
Just one pair of Hokas. Did you have
No, I
change?
changed them halfway just for
Yeah.
not for different size, just to get a slightly, let the cushioning bounce back. Yeah.
Yep, totally.
How were your feet? Sorry, before we go to feet, how's your chest now? You mentioned that asthmatic. How are you now?
Yeah, loads better. Still got a bit of a cough. But it's getting better. It's annoying. I mean, it's very common. I think that's probably just my limiter with these kind of things in the winter. There might be some more I could do to try and prevent it, but yeah, everyone's got one kind of limiter, and that's good. I mean, my
Well,
legs are trashed as well, but I think
yeah.
it worries me a little bit that it's really, it's long term, but as in, what kind of damage do you do doing that? Because all I can describe it as is, so I've been at altitude like 4,000, 5,000 meters, and it's like trying to climb or do any physical activity at that kind of altitude. It's literally 10 steps, heaving over your poles, trying to get your breath. You just can't get enough air in, and it's horrible. It's a real insight into what it's like to be older or limited by your lungs. But it does seem to be temporary.
Okay, that's good. And just jumping back a bit to your feet, how were your feet at the end?
Feet were fine actually. I had two little blisters on my big toes, but I put the compedes on them and they were absolutely fine. Legs were swollen. Got
Yeah.
random pins and needles in my right hand. Don't know why. Still there, probably from either the pole or the rucksack. And I've got a sore, inflamed iliotibial band on my left, which I've never had before. But it's all getting better.
And it's only just over a week.
Yeah,
it's 10
easy.
days, 10 days or something.
Yeah.
Sleep. You spoke about sleep and how that was part of your victory during the race. How has sleep been since? Because we spoke with Mel, and Mel was waking up and thinking she was going to a checkpoint. This is like during the week. Here, get my kit. How was it for you the days after?
I haven't had any of that. I think the first night, by the time as soon as the adrenaline wore off, I was helpless. Like I had mum and friends undressing me when we got back to the Airbnb. It was like my body had just shut down. I think partly because I hadn't eaten really for the last few hours and just everything. But anyway, that night it was probably 2, and then we slept till maybe 8 or whatever. And then I had friends staying in this Airbnb, so it was quite busy. And the next night I had to get up for a radio interview, which was stupid. I should just have said no. Like setting an alarm was a really bad idea. But yeah, I'm sleeping well now. I haven't had any nightmares or anything. Generally not been. I think I've been running on adrenaline this last week, like getting back to work and bits of media and bits of bobs. And I'm definitely kind of now I'm like, oh yeah, this is where I need the 10-hour sleeps. But yeah, no crazy nightmares or anything.
Cool. I have a second surprise question, one from Mel Sykes herself. We asked Mel to sum up Lucy Gossage, and she spoke about you very, very proudly, and I think very proud to have you as a friend. But Mel's question would be, what would Lucy change about your race this time? What have you learned this time?
Well, just go back to Mel. Like, I think Mel's story is, so I remember Mel. I didn't know Mel, but Mel videoed me coming to Hawes last year. And well, in fact, I know she did that first lap that I did. Because I remember, oh, long story. Anyway, we'd sent the whole course off way, but anyway, I ran past her and then I realized it was Mel Sykes. I vaguely knew her name from triathlon, but I think her story of like, I listened to her talk to you guys or talk to someone about how disabled she was after her brain surgery. And to come back from that and that patience and that resilience, I just think is testament to the kind of person that Mel is, but also testament to the kind of people that so many people are that are on that start line. And yeah, meeting some of the women that I've met over the last year who do the same kind of stuff as me has been, it's been such a massive highlight, and they've all got incredible stories. They're all so like, just, I don't know, it's different to triathlon. It's just different. And yeah, anyway, I'm waffling, but yeah, I think Mel is an unsung hero and legend. And yeah, we were all, because we could see her dot suffering at the end, and it was really nice in this group. Come on, Mel, you can get there, you can get there. But what was the question? What would I do differently?
No. What would you change anything from this year?
I think so if I was talking purely about performance, I think I should have had a nap at the top of the Cheviot when it's before the sun went down, or maybe before the Cheviot. But had I done that, I wouldn't have had the however many hours John and I had together. But I think that a nap, 30 minutes there, would have given me 90 minutes, given me a 90 minutes back. So maybe it saved an hour. But that's irrelevant, isn't it? It doesn't really matter whether it's 87 or 88 hours. So, but I think that's literally, other than maybe a bit less kit faff at checkpoints, because I did, yeah, I'm not very efficient. Probably I reckon I wasted 15 minutes each of them. But again, that's like rest time. So yeah, it's very rare that you think, actually, I did have a race that went pretty much as perfectly as possible, and I think that one did. Really, like, that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Ooh.
I love it. It looked like the race of your life. It looked absolutely fantastic. Well, so far, I should say. There'll be lots more
But
to come.
do you know what? It's so rare to get. And I did triathlon for all those years, and I had a couple of float days, and okay, the spine's afloat, but again, I think it's all to do with your mindset on that start line and what you believe and what you're thinking. And when I look back to the couple of races where I just had, I felt like I got the best out of myself. Because I always think, like, as an athlete, it's great to win a race, and that's amazing. But when I look back at triathlon, I'm really proud of the races that I won, but I'm way more proud of the races I didn't win. I'm proud of the bad days where I gritted it out and I finished, and I finished every single race. And I'm glad that when I lost, I like to think I lost gracefully. And I'm glad that I didn't let the bad days stop me trying again. And I think the win is amazing, but pulling together a performance that you're proud of is probably the most rewarding thing. And some of the races that I was most proud of weren't the races that I won. They were the races where I maybe finished, wherever I finished, but I got the very best out of myself. And that's what I feel with this spine race. I shouldn't have, I should not, on paper, no one would have thought I could do that. I shouldn't have been able to do that. It's crazy. Even now, I think, like, how the hell did I go that quickly? But somehow I managed to eke the best out of myself. And that, I'm sure, just was because of my mindset and psychology going into the race.
I'm sure a lot of people will talk about the Lucy Gossage victory in 2025 because of what you've just described. Everything's went right for you. And I love, Tim Hoyle is the photographer. I'm Possible on Instagram. He's using this term, the girl band.
Tom's awesome, yeah.
Yeah. And it's quite extraordinary. I mean, I'm sure the race would have went the way it went anyway, but having that recce weekend with your pals and what they've done is quite amazing. you know. So I'm really interested to see what happens next. Let's get the band back together. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next. Alston was sorry, on you
Sorry.
go. I was going to ask
No,
about
I was
Alston
just gonna
lasagna. That's where I'm going.
I was just gonna. They're all like, Sarah Perry won the backyard ultra. They're just these, and she's this unassuming. I don't know Sarah that well. I only met her on that weekend, but she's this unassuming, petite, immaculate young lady who's just like an assassin in the backyard ultras. And Robin and I have known each other for quite a long time. We met doing a swim run years ago, probably 5, 6 years ago, and running, we had maybe 4 hours together, running together from Langdon Beck to Dufton, and it was just such a joy. And we were running along, and she was talking about Si, her partner, and I was talking about how I'd felt on the start line, and then we looked at each other like, it just feels like we were having a jog together, and the sun was coming out, and I was like, Robin, we're winning this spine race. This is crazy. We're winning this spine race, and we just feel like we're having a jog. And that was such a joy. And Robin's performance, given it was the first time, was incredible. And I think if she ever goes back, with the knowledge that I had going into this year's race, it'll be so exciting to see what she can do on that course. But yeah, it was just such a privilege to have those group of women kind of rooting for each other. And I spent a little bit of time with Hannah, and obviously she, her head just wasn't in the right place. But yeah, seeing Kirsty and Ali out on the course, and it was just awesome. And they're such an inspiring group of women, all for their own reasons. And there are so many other women out there who I've never even heard of. But if people like us can kind of amplify women out there, so that it's not like I was feeling I'm the only person who likes going out running 50K. More women think, well, actually, it's normal to go out and get muddy and get lost and get wet and get cold and do crazy distances. That's a massive win.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for that. Alston lasagna is where I was going. Stephen,
Well,
you got a question?
before we go to Alston lasagna, you spoke really quickly about your footwear and your socks, importantly, but there's a lot of other kit that you have to take mandatory for a very good reason. But did you have a favourite bit of kit that doesn't fail me? That's my must have.
I mean, I'm a heavy poles user.
Okay.
I love my poles. No, not really. Like Garmin, my Garmin kept rebooting. It turns out this is actually a widespread
yeah.
problem. I put
I
something on the
read about
Facebook
that.
group, and
Yeah.
everyone's is. So Garmin's obviously got a bit of work to do.
Okay.
But yeah,
Thanks,
it did
man.
give me a bit of satisfaction, I have to say, getting everything out the loft. And I was like, oh, it's like buy one, get one free, using it all again, because it's all just sat there for a year. And
Okay.
it's such a big investment.
Yes.
And then I didn't really have to buy much kit. So yeah, I bought some more, I can't remember, a few bits. I bought a new waterproof and things, but actually it was all just there. So I was, the buy one, get one free mentality came out. So yeah, this is great. It's
Is
half
it-
price.
Is it back in the box for a future?
No, it's not. It's out there
No.
for trying, actually. Not getting put away yet.
all dotted about, hanging over
Yeah.
radiators and stuff. Yeah.
That's good to know. It's not just us that do that then. That's good to
Oh,
know.
I'm
everybody.
so bad.
Yeah, my other half's probably 12. Whoa. This sounds familiar, Stephen. Alston lasagna. John's
yeah,
been
let's
trying
do
to take us to Alston. And did you manage to sample the lasagna at Alston?
Yeah, I did. It was good. I had 4 slices. I think
Good.
again, you don't really enjoy it. It's very much just getting it down, but it was really good. And that was cool because Robin and I were together. So I think I'd got there maybe 15 minutes before. And it was a cool part of the race, actually, because I was never going to sleep there. It was maybe 5 o'clock. We'd had those 4 hours together, and then I'd gapped her a bit on Gospel and was maybe just 15 minutes ahead. We got there, she was planning to sleep, and we just had this conversation. And I was like, this could go either way, but we're both amazing. Like, it's been awesome. Good luck. See you when we see you. And it was just really nice. I think it was, it was clearly a defining point in the race because I was going one way, she was going the other way. Both could, my strategy of not sleeping there could go completely disastrous. But equally, she hadn't had the sleep that I'd had earlier, so she had to sleep. And yeah, it was just really nice. Kind of, yeah, we're both awesome. See you when you see you.
Brilliant. 4 slices, same as Mel. Mel had 4 slices.
Yeah.
And then I also seen that Alston were doing Alston lasagna pizzas
Oh, I
as
didn't
well.
get that. So I didn't hear
Yeah.
about that.
They're on their Instagram. They posted that. I've saved the photograph somewhere.
Missed out on that.
Intriguing.
Stephen, are we going to approach the end? Are we going to go to these final 2 big questions that we've got?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, we're not going to take Lucy by surprise with these 2 ones, because she did say at the start, before we came on air, that she likes to wing it. Okay, so the first of our regular questions that are the most important in the podcast, Lucy, is an entry into the Young Hearts Run Free dialect dictionary. And it's a word or phrase or term that you've either heard along the way, or it's maybe from where you grew up, that is often used.
Okay, I'll give you one from triathlon.
Okay.
Triathlon gossaging, really. So it's like a term amongst my cohort of triathletes, chopper.
Okay.
Do you know what a chopper is?
Well, I know various translations.
So I would say I'm like the epitome of a chopper. And the way I articulate it best was I actually put this on my Instagram. There was a BBC article recently, but there was a I dragged out one from my triathlon days,
Uh-huh.
and it was when I was doing the European duathlon, and it was a picture, and the story was about, Dr. turns full-time triathlete, age of 34, whatever it was. But the point of chopperness, there I was racing the European duathlon as an elite duathlete, winning race. So I was quite good. Yeah, I had snot all down my face. I'd lost my bike visor, so like I was riding with half a bike helmet. I'd chopped the sleeves off my base layer on the start line with scissors, so I had fraying sleeves. And so that kind of sums up being a chopper. So you're actually quite good at what you do, but you don't care about what you look like. You're
Okay.
always got oil legs on your mark, on your, chain lube on your legs. You've never quite got matching kit. You're dropping stuff. You're losing gloves. You haven't uploaded the GPX onto the route, but onto the watch because you've forgotten. And so it's kind of like a term of endearment for someone who's actually really good, but is a bit scatty and just choppery, for example. So like my choppiness on the start line. So my Garmin I knew it was doing this rebooting, and it really worried me that it might not restart. So they'd sent me a new Garmin, which I'd got, and then on the start line, like walking the start line, looked at it, there's no maps on this. Like, there's no maps on this watch. So then, like, panic station, what do I do? So I drag out the old one, then I can't use this, I've got a spare one. So take one off a friend, and that's being a chopper.
Okay.
It sounds like a chopper gets the job done, though.
They tend to get the job done, but there's always a bit of mess along the way.
Yeah, by hook or crook.
We love a bit of drama. A bit of drama is good. We love that.
Okay, that's in. Thank you very much for sharing that.
So Robin,
Chopper.
for example, Robin Cassidy is the absolute opposite of being a chopper. So I would come into checkpoints and she was there like immaculate. She literally looked like she'd done a 5K. I was there, mud, snot, hair everywhere, kit explosion. And Robin's just the actual antithesis. What the opposite? Is that antithesis of being a chopper? She's not a chopper in any sense.
Okay.
But she could aspire to be one. I'm Robin. I'll give you some training if you want some tips.
We should also say that there was a pairing in the lakes in the summertime where Robin finished first and Lucy Gossage finished second, about half an hour between you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
which is where I had first had the pleasure of meeting Lucy, because she was trying to get into the VIP area through the wrong door.
Very true. Yeah, very true.
And I was there acting as some kind of
bouncer,
cameraman, but I was taking video. But yeah, I was like, and you come if you want. But I think there was a bigger fella who went, you have to go round that way. So I do recall that little interaction, Lucy.
Brilliant.
At the prize giving.
Our last question, Lucy, is a musical one. We have a playlist that every guest gets the opportunity to add a song or two to the
Oh,
playlist.
I know. So
Brilliant.
sweet. This is what I play. So I had this dream. I was going to finish the spine race, and I was going. There's a little bench, a K out from the finish, and I was going to sit at the top of this little hill on the road. I was just going to sit down. I was going to put Sweet Caroline on, and that was what I was going to play. And that's because, long story, but anyway, it's just something that I just dreamt of doing, and I wanted to do it last year, and I was in a broken. So K out with John Kelly. I put on and say, sorry, John, this is coming out. And I play this on repeat. And then actually, as we get maybe 400 meters out, Bex, my friend, comes running out and she's like got it blaring out. So poor John's got Sweet Caroline blaring for the last 5 minutes.
He's getting it in stereo. Brilliant.
That was really, I think that was just, I always had this vision of having enough energy to put that on at the end, and I did, and that would just like, it just was really important to me. So anyway, that's my song.
Brilliant. And I love the fact that you knew instantly what song it was going to be. So thank you so much. And it's an absolute, if we're talking about belters and bangers, that's one of them. So thank you very much for choosing that.
Also means a lot to me. So that's a perfect song for this moment, to be honest. So yeah, there we go. John?
A fantastic.
Have you got any other side questions, by the way? Because he comes up with some side questions out of nowhere, Lucy, as you might have noticed. But I'm just making sure he's got through them all.
No, I think I've covered them. I think
I've covered them.
Okay. I'm very happy because I knew this would be an absolutely fantastic chat, and it's one of these some chats it feels like you've been talking for 10 minutes. This feels like one of them, but we've covered a whole host of stuff. And thank you for being so flexible, Lucy, with the Young Hats Run Free question set. You just sort of rattled through it in some sort of way, shape, or form. I've loved it. I've loved the chat. Congratulations again on your victory. It was quite brilliant to hear from you the things that you put in place for that best day out on the spine race to happen. I'm going to hand over to Stephen now to sign us off.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, firstly, thanks very much for giving up the time to speak to us, Lucy. It's been a real privilege to get to do so. But you mentioned something earlier, and it was about when you first started, that 28 miles a day across Wales or whatever it was, and imagining where you are now and just how you've just pushed those horizons. But hearing that from somebody who's been a pro triathlete and already done really hard things, it just made it a bit, well, everybody can take something from that, and what you think is impossible tomorrow becomes possible, and then so forth and so on. And that's a real message that I've got kind of ringing in my ears. So thank you and congratulations again on what has been a terrific start to 2025.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks for having me on. It's always a privilege to reflect. So thank you.